Okay, the recording is starting.
Hello, everyone. It is the 11th of July, and this is the cert-manager bi-weekly maintainer meeting. As a reminder, we adhere to the NCF Code of Conduct, so everyone be nice to each other. We have a very light agenda today. We have a couple shout-outs currently being written as I speak. So I'll vamp a bit more while Ash continues to type. Ash, do you wanna speak while you're typing?
I don't really have much to say, to be honest, but it is worth shouting out that we, as part of the graduation process, there is a requirement to get a governance review from Tag Contributor Strategy. I think we actually thought we'd done this by going to a meeting, but that was not the case, apparently. They're going to look at our governance strategy and all that good stuff, and ideally, this will get concluded pretty quickly. The tag security one was fairly quick, and yeah, this will proceed in the open. So I'm announcing it in the open. Yeah, it's just a step along the road. As far as I understand it, as well as another graduation update, the invites have been sent out, or requests have been sent out to some of the people who volunteered to be interviewed for part of our graduation process. I'm not sure who those people are. I'm not meant to know. Katie is organizing that, but the wheels are turning on that as well, and that's one of the last pieces of the puzzle to get us over the line. So just a couple of positive updates, really.
I
You are
can't
muted,
hear
Adam.
you.
Yeah, I am muted, and then I screen shared and lost the button to unmute, so I'm a professional. Okay, thank you for that. If there's no other announcements, we have only a couple of agenda items today. First of which is a demo I actually did in one of our stand-ups, I think Monday, that I was going to do again here around trust-manager-csi that I threw together over the weekend.
Just before you start, Brian, do you have any time constraints? I, I am mindful of the fact that you might leave and we won't be hearing from you. Do you want to share something with
No,
us?
you can continue. I mean, I have time, I guess.
Oh, great. So let's go over the demo.
Sure. So this boils down to what I think Trust Manager aims to be, which is a way of injecting trust, the CA bundles, into your containers. And currently, the way Trust Manager works is it aggregates trust into a single secret or config map which you mount in. But what I was working on was trying to mount those bundles in a way that looks familiar to Linux users. So if you've ever used Linux, you will have seen, let me just let me start a Fedora container. You'll have seen etc SSL certs, and you'll have seen this absolutely fun file structure where it's got the hash of the cert as a symlink to the real cert. So I wanted to see if I could recreate that in a way that could be mounted into the pod, so we could update trust bundles for people programmatically using a CSI driver. So this is something I threw together over the weekend. So on this cluster, I've got a little kind cluster. I've got cert-manager running, trust manager running, and also trust manager CSI driver, which is something I've thrown together running. And what I'm going to do is, as a professional, I have wrote some demo scripts, which I hope just work. And what this is going to do is it's first going to set up a test namespace. It's also going to create an issuer, a self-signed issuer certificate, and a certificate using the issuer, basically creating a private CA using cert-manager. And then I'm going to use that private CA on a little engine Xpod. NS. So you can see I've got an engine Xpod, and that's going to be presenting a cert off our private CA. What I've also done is I have created a pod which I'm going to shell into to show this in action, and that pod is just running Debian. And this is where the magic happens. This is where I've got a volume mount over etc SSL certs, and that is coming from csi.trust-manager.io. I'm mounting in a bundle. That bundle is example.com, and currently that bundle just contains the default CAs. So that's the Mozilla CA bundle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shell into that. I'm going to look in etc SSL certs, and it looks fairly good. It looks exactly as expected. It's got a CA certificates file. It's got all these hashes. But what's cool about this is while I've got curl installed, I actually don't have the CA certificates package installed at all in this pod. All the CAs are coming from the CSI driver. See, so you can see it's coming from a 10% volume. Curl still ip.me is a good one. Works. I've just curled something over HTTPS. Works fine, exactly how you'd want. And we actually see what curl's doing behind the scenes if we just did a trace-e open at, we can see it's loading etc SSL certs CA certificates. Now, most modern software will use the aggregated bundle file. The actual hash files aren't used by an awful lot, but it's good to have them for backwards compatibility with older stuff. And we can actually force curl to use it just by saying ca cert me.pem, giving it a random file. And we can see it's still curled, but because that random file doesn't have the correct CA in it, it then went to the CA path and loaded the hash file. And the way that works is it gets the certificate back from the server, it hashes the issuer, and then looks for a certificate file with that hash name, because the file names are based off the hash of the subject line. So the hash of the issuer of the cert you're presenting should match the hash of the subject line for a CA that issued it. It's basically like a giant hash table, but on a file system that OpenSSL uses. Now, the cool thing about this is I created an Nginx server, but if I currently curl it, I get this SSL problem, because why would it work? I've not got it in my Trust bundle. But if I did demo step 2, I'm going to inject that CA, my private CA, into my Trust bundle. I'm going to curl Nginx again, and it instantly works because the CSI driver has rebuilt my my mount, added it to the aggregate, added the hash file, and now it's trusted. And again, we can see what's going on. We can do trace-e open at, and you can see it's loading the CA certificates. If I did dummy, you can see it would fall back to the hash. In fact, we can even cat that and see the contents of my private CA, which matches the one I've just injected into the bundle. If I were to remove it from the bundle, it's not working yet because it's not part of the Trust bundle anymore. And it's pretty much instantaneous in updating that bundle. Now, currently I'm just injecting at etc SSL certs, but obviously different operating systems or different distros of Linux inject their certs in various different places. But I think what would complement the CSI driver nicely is a webhook which injects the appropriate CA formats into all of the directories for the most common distros like Fedora and Debian. And then you could have a product that would allow you to manage the CSI, the trust bundle of your pods that would work with all the popular distros of base image that are in the wild, which would be great from a user perspective because it means you don't have to rebuild all the images to include trust bundles. You can just use it as a product in Kubernetes to inject the CAs you want to support straight into your pods. So that's what I was through together over the weekend. There's a link in the doc to the code base. It takes a lot from the CSI driver stuff that cert-manager uses. But yeah, I will now field questions if anyone has any questions.
Great presentation. You answered my questions in your presentation.
That's the hallmark of a good talk. That it helps that I actually did this on Monday during one of the stand-ups and got all the wrote down all the questions people asked.
I wasn't there on Monday, so maybe I've got a question which you did answer, but I couldn't. What's the advantage of the CSI driver approach over mounting a config map, which Trust Manager populates?
Because the config map would be absolutely silly. If you wanted to mimic the format of the etcsl search directory, you've got to have the aggregate file which contains everything, as well as individual files which contain a single cert. I think that secret would start to look absolutely bananas quite quickly, and you may even hit upon the 1 megabyte limit that secrets have, especially since you've basically got a duplication of data, being that you've got the aggregate there and then all the individual ones.
Okay. So it wouldn't be sufficient to just have the CA certificates. The hashes are used by certain legacy software.
Yeah. I mean, if you, for example, Redis, for example, if you point it at CA dir, it expects the dir to be in this format. And if you actually look at the pod, let me just get per example. You could even extend this if you wanted a certificate file mounted in a certain folder. It would accept that because you can just add another volume that mounts a different bundle in a different place if you needed that format. Because some applications, if you specify a CA directory, doesn't load all the PEM files in that directory, expects this format.
Right. No, it's interesting. I didn't know about the hash. I didn't know about those hash files, and I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
What was the strace argument you used? I have to try and remember that.
Oh, strace.
Just to get the files that are opened.
Open at is it's basically that's the function that it's calling it.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, you can actually see what's going on with the files if you just cat etcsl cert and I run that through OpenSSL x509 subject hash. Oh, what? Have I spelled something wrong? Yes. You can see how the hash of the subject matches the file name. The only thing that's different is it's got this -0 on the end because that accounts for collisions. So if two collide, then it will just increment to -1.1, sorry, and you see.
Cool.
And equally, if I had the cert that that's something we're presenting, if you did issue a hash, you can see the file it will try and load to try and validate that. In this case, it's self-signed, obviously, so it's going to match. But
it's not really related to this, but I read this morning about a new volume driver in Kubernetes, the OCI volume source, where you can pull in files from another Docker image. So I saw that and I was thinking, maybe that's some way you could put certificates, and mount them into all your pods, but this is better, I think.
Yeah, the benefit of this is, A, you can live update, you have control over it, but B, because it is bundles, you can create different bundles for different purposes. You don't have to rely on pushing them anywhere. You can create like aggregates. You can create like a bundle which contains all your company's CAs, and then a team create a bundle that contains the parent bundle of the company's CAs, but also that the CAs they want to trust as part of their team. And they don't have to build images and stuff. They can just mount it. It works. So I'd like, yeah, as I said, I'd love to have a webhook component as well, which injects it in all the same places. So either through an annotation on your pod or a custom reader definition, you can say, these pods want this, need to trust this bundle. Go sort it out for me.
The injection that you did for that, the CA to make it trustworthy, is that a resource that's going to be namespace aware, or is that going to be a cluster only CR?
Currently, it has no CRDs, but Trust Manager currently only works with cluster scope stuff. I've got a whole other work in progress proposal I'm trying to raise for Trust Manager to have a V2 of the CRDs, which would have a namespace and cluster scoped version of the bundle. But I think that is separate, but totally relevant.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Currently, this is just in my personal GitHub, but I'm happy to move this over to the CM GitHub if people want to play with it. I've already got a big notice at the top saying, this is a POC, please don't run it anywhere.
I don't know about
4, yes.
Yeah, it sounds like something that should be that is appropriate for cert-manager, doesn't it? But also, you might want to keep it in your repo to keep the credit for it.
I mean, it's got my name all over the commit logs, so
yeah,
that's not going anywhere. The worry is that if I leave it in mine, it's just going to stagnate. But I would like to actually get some mileage out of it and see if we can play with it some more. Cool. Well, that's my demo. I'll move it into CM when I get a moment. Back to the main affair. Let me just share my desktop again and go to the document. The next thing we have on our docket is a couple of things by you, Rich. So do you want me to drop screen sharing and you can talk for a bit?
Yeah, I haven't prepared anything, but I just thought it might be a nice time to talk about a couple of these things. So I'll share my screen. Yeah.
Wait. Do you want to pause for a moment and talk with Brian? Maybe now is a good moment.
I mean,
I
I'm
was
sure.
just yeah. Did you want to present yourself? It's the first time I see
Okay.
you. I'd love to hear.
Okay, yeah. We are using cert-manager in production for thousands of certificates. And I saw on the agenda that there was something about ACME. Like now that it's off the screen, I can't see it. But the ACME issue about multiple clusters, trying to figure out like a quota system. I don't know. I'm interested in that topic. So
Because you're hitting this rate limiting often. Is that what's happening?
yeah, to me right now cert-manager is a black box, how it issues, how requeues. I see errors is like a certain range of errors, HTTP errors from our issuer, 400 to 500, and I don't know how often it retries, but it seems like when we have multiple clusters running it, that it compounds the problem. So I've lowered the amount of concurrent requests in the configuration. And I'm still seeing issues. So I'm interested in that topic. So
Have you? How can we help you?
well, I mean, I was thinking that, I mean, I because I'm steeped in this problem right now, maybe I could add metrics to, figure out how much issuance is happening. I don't know if you have something in mind already for that.
That's a good question.
Metrics is always a good thing. We already exposed Prometheus metrics. We don't have metrics for this in particular. I will be totally in favor of adding metrics for this.
Yeah, so maybe I'll add that. But I mean, if you already do you have a issue for that already, or how do contributions work?
So in general, if you raise a pull request, you can then ping the group on Slack just to ask us to have a look at it. For larger items, if it's a major rework or a new big major feature, we ask that you create a design document first. We've got a designs folder on the CM repo.
Okay.
But for this, just adding more metrics, it wouldn't need anything like a design document. It would just be a PR where you state what you're doing in the description, raise the PR, follow the contribution guidelines on the cert-manager website, and just ping us when you're ready in Slack, and we'll have a look at it.
All right. Yeah. And I guess to the agenda item, I don't know, the future agenda item, again, I don't have it on my screen. But is there something in the ACME protocol that says, like, do they have like something that provides a number of concurrent requests that could be supported? Because I don't know how else you would do it.
Oh yeah, continue discussion. It says continue discussion about cert-manager ACME issuance rate limits in multi-cluster setup. Is that something that Urbe wrote when she was there?
It may have come up in the last bi-weekly. We were joined by a guy whose name I've forgotten, was talking briefly about how I think the motivation was ACME rate limits, and he described how he created all his certificates in a single namespace and then copied them out to the target namespaces. And I think, Adam, can you remember, is that because if they're all in a single namespace, it limits the concurrency somehow? I've just forgotten the argument for that.
I can't remember. I know that if we're looking at multiple setups, there is no field in ACME spec that would be able to tell us that we're about to hit rate limit. We just hit it. Maybe we need to handle rate limits better. I don't know how we currently handle them in the code. Maybe we need to put a big old back off, or maybe a configurable back off on ACME requests if they're failing.
I'm curious, which rate limits do you generally hit when you're in multiple clusters? Are you looking at kind of like duplicate certificate rate limiting, or are you looking at just the number of requests being sent to the ACME provider?
Well, I mean, what it looks like to me is that our provider is not able to handle it, even though they tell us that they can. So I've been like, are you sure? I keep asking them this. So, I mean, somewhat of an exponential back off, usually is a good thing. But I don't know what it's like right now, how you've implemented it.
So it should already have a back off on the issuance because it uses Kubernetes mechanics to do that. So if issuance fails, it'll re-add it to the queue with an exponential back off. But it may not be enough. better handling around this. I don't know. Yeah, I think metrics is certainly a good start, so we can see what else is going on, especially if we can track it, the number of requests we're actually sending. Currently, the backoff would be per object, per certificate object, so I can see if you had a bunch of certificate objects, even if they all go into exponential backoff, that you still have a bunch of requests in flight. So maybe based on metrics, we need to implement a more of a global rate limit for interaction with ACME servers to say we want a maximum number of n per time.
Yeah, like a Prometheus query that.
I don't know how you do it. It probably has to be something pretty nutty, like we don't send more than 10 requests a second or something.
Yeah.
But
you might be able to configure kube-state metrics to get metrics about the orders and the challenges if you wanted to try it out without having to change the cert-manager code. It might be a way of doing it that way as well.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that. That's a interesting point.
yeah, I think there's definitely some ideas floated around. I think we could get some metrics, and then once we've got a more concrete idea of how many requests we're sending in the worst case scenarios, what we can do to try and mitigate. Yash.
Okay. I don't have anything else on that topic, so.
Oh, and please join the Kubernetes Slack if you want to talk to us directly.
Yeah, I'm in there. Well, you know.
Oh,
I'm,
great.
If we ever are a bit slow,
in your channel.
Sorry, go on.
I haven't talked in your channel before, so. But yeah, I'm in there.
If we're ever a bit slow to comment on an issue or pull request, just prod us in there. We have a lot of noise, so squeaky wheel gets the oil and all that.
Yeah.
And just to make you aware, I'm curious on this issue because I'm expanding to quite a significant number of clusters, and I hadn't considered the ACME rate limiting with the number of clusters being a factor. So yeah, I'll be interested in your metrics that you go for, and if you've got any other insights or if you've got any other questions on that one, I'll be keeping an eye out because I'm interested in this.
Yeah, I could tell you, I have max concurrent challenges set to 3 right now because I have, you know, about a dozen clusters. And they told me what, you know, what their limit was. So
do all your clusters request similar domains or the same domain?
No.
Okay. Yeah, because the pattern we have seen is for if that's the case, is to have cert-manager running in one and then a replication operator to replicate it out. But if they're all asking for different certs, then that won't help.
Right. There are 1 or 2 clusters that are for the same domain. So then what is this replication that you're referring to?
There's a few options. I think there's a few secret operators that allow you to replicate secrets from one Kubernetes cluster to another. And the idea being is you run cert-manager in your source of truth cluster and then run the secrets operator next to it to say the certificate that cert-manager generates gets copied to child clusters. And that's a way of having the same certificate copied to a bunch of clusters without lots of ACME requests. But obviously it only works if they all need the same domain.
Yeah. I did something similar to you know, back up and restore certs from one cluster to another. Just imported all those secrets. Right, that's what you're basically describing, right?
Yeah, it's like like a live copy. There's a few operators. I can't. If someone has a link to one of them, that would be great.
I've noticed that there is a mention of retry headers that are provided by. I don't know if that would help or not. The ACME servers can, or probably already, give a retry after header, and that's something that cert-manager doesn't look at. But I think Tim has more knowledge on this.
I'll just put the link in the chat, but the external secrets operator supports as one of its sources another Kubernetes cluster. So that could be a way to copy.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Wait,
do we
is the rate limiting hit because the same domain is requested by multiple clusters? I didn't
No.
I didn't understand that. Okay.
No, not in this case, but that was just that was a thread we went down for people that are in that use case.
Okay, yeah. So multi-cluster would be because the same domain gets requested over and over.
If each cluster requests the same domain, we recommend you copy it out. But if each cluster requests a different domain, then yeah, we're still in this problem where you're gonna be bombarding your ACME provider with requests when you first spin them all up, which is something that needs thought and brain power. Cool. Does anyone have any more thoughts on this?
I just pasted a link to the scheduler code, which I think is worth reading.
Cool.
And I pasted a link to the Zombro's comment in his DNS Made Easy repository, where he talks about using Reflector to copy secrets. That's another example.
Cool. Yeah, Reflector is the one I'm thinking of. I ended up finding the external secrets one, but same thing. Copying between clusters. All right. If there's nothing else on that topic, we can move on the agenda to the last couple of items that you've got there, Richard.
Yeah, I might not. I get evicted from this office in 15 minutes, so I'll try and be quick. Let me share my screen. Let me see. Can you see my web browser?
Yes.
Cool. Sorry, I'm going off. Right, so I wanted to just quickly talk about this change that I've made to the CA injector. The problem I'm trying to fix is that when people have reported that when they have a cluster with thousands and thousands of secrets, or a fewer number of very large secrets, that CA injector, for example, will either crash, no, either be killed because it uses too much memory, uses more than memory than that's available in the limit set on it, or it has some effect on the API server itself. And actually, in this issue? This issue, the reporter talks about it crashing their API server. So I didn't really understand how that could happen, but I think I do now understand it, and it's because CA injector, like most controllers in Kubernetes, will use a cache, a client-side cache of all the resources that it reconciles, and CA injector reconciles secrets. And when the client Go cache that it uses starts up, it starts by listing all of the secrets in all the namespaces. And it does it without any paging. So what happens is CA Injector starts up, it sends a list request to the API server, and it gets back all the secrets and all the data across all the namespaces, and it holds that in memory briefly while it populates the cache, and that is what is causing it to be unkilled. So in this PR, I've changed the CA injector to not to list the metadata of all the secrets, not the data, and that reduces the amount of memory used at startup. And the question is, if you only cache the metadata of the secrets, what the consequence is that you have a lower memory use at startup, but during the ongoing operations of the operator, it has to go directly to the API server to get the data of those secrets that it is reconciling. And so the effect is it places less load on the API server at startup, but a greater load on the API server during its ongoing work. Maël has reviewed this PR, and he's made this remark, which I wanted to discuss, about are there any downsides to disabling caching, he asks, because, for example, Crossplane has 900 CRDs, and that 900 CRDs, if they are using CA Injector to inject the CA into the conversion webhooks of those CRDs, it will cause CA Injector to request 900 secrets in quick succession. And will that overload the API server? I don't know. I don't think so. It's certainly
I would agree.
It's certainly less load than loading all the secrets at startup. So I think it's a trade-off worth taking.
From experience, the API server can tank an awful lot. Like we've had operators that had like the hundreds of thousands of a single object, and it's just the list operation. It hangs my computer more than it hangs the API server. So I think it's fine to disable caching, and then this is an extreme case.
Okay.
Extreme case. Installing 900 CRDs at once is not something that most operators are doing.
Yeah, I didn't say anything in my comment, but I think it's so much better to use the thing you did to disable caching, and most importantly, not list all the secrets on startup or not on startup. I said something about, I imagine that on startup all the secrets will need to be listed. That's not true. cert-manager will not need to list all the secrets. It will only try to find or try to get the secrets that it needs to know about. So this, what I said here.
True. No, CA Injector will list all the secret metadata. So it will no longer list. It will no longer fetch all the data of all the secrets, only the metadata. So the volume and the size of the response is much smaller.
So it uses meta v1 partial object metadata to
Yeah.
And wait, is this feature a server-side feature, or is it a client-side feature? This partial
server
metadata.
side.
No, it's
Maël.
I think it's client-side.
Server side. You send an accept request for partial object metadata, and you get back just the metadata.
Ah, okay. I wasn't aware of this. That's great. Actually, I should, like, for example, the other day you on my local machine here, you created a ton of secrets, and I wanted to list them all. And when I do get, it lists all the secrets without restricting to the metadata. I wasn't aware.
I'm surprised that you two. I'm doubting myself now, but I'll so that's some further evidence I can put in the pull request description. But I'm
I've
pretty
never-
sure.
I've never put time to investigate. I always assumed it worked by just not having the fields in Go. So when JSON unmarshaled itself, it just dropped the fields. But it would make total sense for it to be also implemented server side. And if Kubernetes have done this, I would not be totally surprised. So
Yeah, so when in the logs as it starts up, you can see instead of normally it would in master it says starting reflector for v1.secret. With this branch, it says starting reflector for meta v1.partial object metadata.
Yeah.
And then if you increase the logging verbosity, you can see the accept headers that it sends.
Yeah.
Ah.
The accept headers are the magic
Yeah.
that make that. Yeah, and that
tells
would be
the server to only return that projection.
API
of the
server
data.
side. API server side, it's still loading the entire secret because it's all proto-buffed inside etcd. It's just what it's sending over the wire. That'll be minimized.
Well, why does it
Maybe.
need
I don't know
to? I don't understand why does it need to this reflector in the first place.
Watch for
Why does
changes.
it need this? What? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, you cannot watch. That's stupid. You cannot watch objects without loading them at first.
It lists this. This is sorry, Robin, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
So no, the one thing I just want to add to this one as well, if there's a concern about overloading the API server, the API priority and fairness does a pretty good job, if not amazing job, at preventing the API server from being overloaded. A whole bunch of information if people aren't aware of it, but generally, if there is, you can define capacity for certain features and the priority for certain requests to the API, setting it rate limits based on just how busy that API server is. So the other factor to say is if there is concern about this change and it being impacting to the API server, is they can define that API priority and fairness. It might take slightly longer for the initialization, but the API server will stay healthy throughout.
Yeah, that's something I'd looked into for another piece of work I've been doing. We all of our cert-manager uses a client-side rate limiter by default, but you can turn that off. Well, no, the problem is you can't turn it off at the moment and make use of you can't turn it off as it stands, but we should add. I want to add that feature as well. I want to make it possible to turn off the client-side rate limiting in the controller, CA injector, and all the other side projects as well. Yeah, okay. So I'll add some more info to the PR description with the examples of the requests and the responses. And that's that's all I was going to say.
Totally in favor of using partial object metadata for this, and yeah, I don't think it would hit any issues.
There's one other thing. Yeah, so this behavior of first listing all of the objects and then watching. There's a new feature in Kubernetes which I think has just gone into beta. Adam, you said beta features aren't enabled by default, but this thing is called, what's it called? List and watch or something.
Watch lists, I think.
Watch lists. It basically means that you don't have to do the initial list of all the resources. You start a watch and it streams all of the it starts by streaming all of the existing objects to you in a.
But that's what cert-manager is using right now, right? At least when I use MITM proxy to see what's happening, I see this long-lasting watch call.
Yeah, it's two operations. It's two API calls at the moment. But the new way of doing it will involve one API call.
So the old way, Maël, is a list operation populates the cache, and then in a watch operation, watches for changes for the informers. The new thing, the new list watch thing, I'll just post the link to the cap, is that the watch operation will give you all the existing items as events first, so you don't need to perform an initial list operation. Which is
Yeah, so
better.
we could, that's another thing we can do. We can, I think it's supported in Client Go now, so we can maybe add a flag or something that allows our software to use this new mechanism if it's enabled on the server.
Yeah, there's a bool for it in the.
And that would solve, that alone would solve the crashing of the API server problem, I think.
Oh, you're right, Adam. I just tested and I get 2 different calls. One with the watch query parameter and the other with nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally a bool inside the cache reflector object that says use watch lists. But I imagine at some point I've been able by default. At some point, when the cap's out, and they'll probably just change the library to use it by default, since there's no downsides to it whatsoever.
Yeah, based on the Kubernetes documentation, it states it's an alpha as of 1.27. So that's one to keep an eye on for when that turns to beta. So the cloud providers or the main cloud providers have it enabled by default.
It's turning beta in the next release, apparently, in 1.31.
Oof, that's going to be a very powerful release, given a few of the other enhancements going to 1.31 or planned for 1.31 at the moment.
But the beta doesn't mean it'll be turned on by default.
Yeah.
I've only got 4 minutes before I get kicked out. So shall I quickly? All I wanted to talk about was this pull request. It ties in with a meeting we had before this one. It would be very useful, wouldn't it, if every one of our pull requests resulted in a Docker image that the reviewer could pull and test with, and perhaps the location of those Docker images could be automatically added as comments in the pull request. In this case, Tim has made a change to the AWS Route 53 solver for ACME, but none of us have, none of us have easy access to an AWS cluster for testing this change, or the expertise to set it up to test this change. But this person does, but they don't have the expertise to create the images themselves. So if we could publish the images automatically, it would make it easier for our contributors and users to test the new features that we're merging.
I'm totally in favor. I would probably gate it behind the OK to test flag, just so I'm thinking from a security mindset. I could create a pull request with malicious stuff in it. If an image automatically gets built, I can then say use this image. It's from cert-manager.io. It's totally, look, it's got their name on it.
Yeah. That's...
Does the root repo have a make file where you can just have a one command make compile, which then builds the Docker image for you?
It does, but it's not perfect, and it's it works for us on Linux and Apple, but I don't know. I think it would be it's a bit much to ask people to check out the branch from the fork that this pull request is using and then compile everything themselves. It may be this guy has got a work laptop where he's not allowed to install stuff like that.
What isn't there? There is something called CMRL. How is it called? There's a way to create a not a temporary, but I can't remember the term. But CMRL used to be used to create temporary or throwaway images like this. But it wouldn't be pushed to a registry, so that the person would still struggle using it.
Prow has the same Prow plugin which does the OK to test stuff. You can add to your config that when someone when something is trusted, it triggers something. You can basically add triggers to the pre-submit, so we could have it so Prow triggers a publish automatically. but gate it behind okay to test. It's literally looking at the docs. It's literally just add a trigger. So make sure by default it only runs triggers for things from trusted members. So either okay to test or cert-manager org members, and then it will just do a task for us, and it should run it again if the PR gets updated. So that'll be it doesn't sound too painful, apart from the obvious job
Is it
itself.
needed for every single PR, or is it a one-off thing?
It could just, I don't know. Look, these are details, but in principle, we're all in favor of making it easier for non-maintainers to test the code in branches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
even a slash publish that just creates a TTL image for you.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Like
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
We could have that
And
as
only a maintainer could trigger that.
Yeah, and then the maintainer or the author, maybe, if it's been okayed. I don't know. There's but there are definitely options. I think that we should look at what our current setup,
cool.
what the easiest thing to implement is.
Might need some wording just
Do any other
if
projects do this? Oh, sorry, I talked over you, Robin. My question is, do any other projects do this? I haven't seen it, I don't think.
I think it's going to go linked into what I was about to ask or but was about to mention, which is you might need to add disclaimer or something upon the lines of to say that these aren't officially supported versions. If you upgrade, you're doing it at your own risk. Certificates are secret, they are private. There could be a potential where there is a security vulnerability that hasn't been detected in these temporary images, and that by using it, you understand that it's the upgrade path, even from that version, might be very hard if it makes changes. If it's a major change, causes change to your cluster, you might not be able to go back. And so I think that's where the if you make them in a repository that's generally accepted by cert-manager, that could be slightly iffy on somebody sees it, uses it, but doesn't understand what it actually does or what it actually means.
Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. So we don't, somehow make it clear that, I don't know, maybe we could inject into the Helm chart, if we publish a Helm chart for PR, a warning or something that says this is a non-production build. Or just publishing it to ttl.sh is a sign that it's not an official build, and those are automatically garbage collected after a time.
24 hours, I think, is the max, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Which is why you'd probably want a slash command to renew it. So.
So that there aren't so that old lingering pull requests don't have attached to them these installation instructions, which people might inadvertently continue to use. All right, I'm out of time and out of battery, so I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay. I mean, that's all for the agenda. So unless anyone's got any more ad hoc things, I'm pretty sure we can wrap up here. Okay. If no one's got any ad hoc, then thank you all for joining. This will be available on YouTube the moment that it is available to us as a download. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Bye, everybody.